Disenchantment. They've announced the final season of Disenchantment on Netflix. I know you haven't really watched it, but I'm going to get you to watch it one day, Tariq.
I'll try. I'm not tried. I'm trying.
I
Cause
know.
I.
I get it. It wasn't until part 3 where I was like, I love this now.
Yeah. I'm not against giving it multiple shots. After it took me, like I'll tell the story all the time, but it took me 3 tries to like Toucan Birdie, and that was like one of my favorite
I know you love
things.
it.
So
That's
it's
right.
like, I'm not against keep trying. You know what I
Totally.
mean?
Um, I really like. How far did you get? You're still in
How
season
far
1?
did that? I am. Yeah, I am.
Okay.
I'm still on
Okay. I think you just got to get to the end of season 1. There is some like
I never made it there.
last couple episodes of season 1, I was like, oh, this is where that was like what really won me over with season 1. Season 2 like backslid a little bit into some tendencies I didn't love about season 1. But then I don't know. There's some really great stuff in Disenchantment. But it sounds like they wanted to do 20 more episodes. I think their kind of plan was 6 parts to wrap it up. Netflix after season 4 was like, we don't want to do 2 more. We'll give you 1 more. And so,
Damn.
but you know, I think it's good and bad. It did feel like season 3 is so good, and season 4 felt like it backslid a little bit and spun its wheels a tiny bit. So I'm kind of like, all right, well, yeah, let's just wrap this story up. But I don't know. It's also a bummer to think that they maybe had a whole 6-season plan and now have to condense some of that plan into 10.
Yeah.
But at least they were given the opportunity, and it sounds like they're really happy with how it came out. Josh Weinstein was tweeting about it and how he's like, yeah, we were supposed to do, we had to, at least Netflix at least gave us the opportunity. It's kind of the same thing with BoJack. Like BoJack wasn't really planning on making season 6 its final season, but they gave them the
Oh,
heads
really?
up. But they thought they were going to get more, which is kind of why season 6 feels like 2 seasons, because it's more episodes, and it's like
And they
it
split
seems
it.
like, yeah, and part 1 and part 2 feel like 2 entirely different seasons. um,
I agree.
but
Especially
Netflix,
because he does that. He gets his haircut and shit. It's like a redesign and
yes,
shit. Yeah.
exactly. I see season 6A as the rehab season, and I see season 6B as the relapse season. that's how I
Word.
that's how I put it. But it's nice to see, especially after Netflix has canceled some other things, that they didn't unceremoniously cancel Disenchantment, and they were like, all right, well, we're 4 seasons in, let's give them another 10 to like wrap up their story,
That's
especially
true.
since it's such a story centric show.
Mm-hmm.
um and yeah, I'm actually really excited. I think I said this on the pod before. I tweeted it the other day. I almost, even though I'm really pleased with what I've seen of Futurama so far, I'm like, I kind of wish, like, if you gave me ahead of time and said, all right, we can get more Futurama, or Disenchantment can get exactly as many episodes as they want to finish out their story, I would have taken Disenchantment.
I saw you tweet that, and I was like, I don't know if I was just waking up or like really tired and about to go to sleep or what, but like I almost responded, I'm not even a Disenchantment fan, and I agree with this. I remember thinking that when I read it.
Man, I yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, especially with Futurama just having such a good ending. It's
Mm-hmm.
like if there was never another Futurama episode, I would have been satisfied. And
Mm-hmm.
if with Disenchantment, I'm like, oh god, I really hope we don't end up it doesn't end up feeling rushed, or it doesn't end up
Yeah,
feeling
yeah.
like we could have had more to make the story work better. But I'm excited. And you know what? A 50 episode run these days on streaming, pretty good. I think it's that Matt Groening clout that got them their finale season.
Mm-hmm.
Because for whatever reason, it's clear that the show didn't quite connect like they wanted it to. It has its really diehard fans, but it does not seem to have grabbed general audiences like The Simpsons or Futurama did.
Mm-hmm.
And even just seeing the response to New Futurama, it's like, yeah, New Futurama is gonna bang. People like it, but
Right.
Disenchantment never had this kind of fanfare. Um, But I'm excited. Excited. I don't know. I mean, who knows how or when we'll ever talk about Disenchantment on the pod if we ever do. But I do.
Maybe in that new format.
Maybe. Yeah. But
Maybe.
also, yeah, we'll see. I don't want to give anything away. But
Oh wait,
like,
I think I know what
work?
you're gonna say, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would be kind of wild.
It would be cool though. It would be really cool. We'll see. I'm really excited for Disenchantment. Let us know if you guys are fans of Disenchantment, if it's something you ever want us to cover in some way on the pod. It's harder with the binge ones too. Like, I wonder if that show would have been better received weekly, or if it's, I don't know. I really can't tell because it's half and half serialized and episodic. Like, it's like they're mostly episodic episodes, but they transition to each other in serialized ways. And then sometimes in the middle of seasons, they're just very episodic. So it's tough to say how people maybe would have felt if it were like gone week to week, like Hulu's doing with Futurama. Right. But I'm very excited for Disenchantment Part 5. It's going to air in the middle of Futurama season. That's crazy.
When is that?
September 1st. When does Simpsons season
October
35 start? October 1st. But that's crazy. But isn't that crazy though? And then, but also Futurama's last episode, I think, is, let's see. Let me look this up. Schedule.
That'd be sick if all them shits was like at the exact same time.
It's like a week before Simpsons starts. So Futurama that's crazy. Middle of Futurama season, Disenchantment will air its final 10 episodes. End of Futurama season will end in the end of September, and then the Simpsons season 35 will start October 1st. That's nuts. That is nuts. Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, let us know what you guys think about Disenchantment. I like talking about that show.
They got something up. I didn't watch it yet, but I passively checked on Netflix, I think yesterday. They got some shit up there called Captain Fall. It's like a cartoon, it's like an adult cartoon.
Dude, I haven't watched it yet, but I literally got a tweet from someone the other day that was like, "Johnny, are you going to cover Captain Fall?" ? And I was like, "I don't know what that is," and I ignored it.
I don't know what that is.
And then I got it, but here, get this. I got a response from someone else that was just like, "Yeah, Johnny, will you?" And I was like, "Who is that?" And I clicked it. Creator of the show. Creator of the show.
I didn't know it existed. Like, why didn't they? Like, nobody told me that this. I didn't know this was. I didn't see a trailer. Like, you know what I mean? I
still haven't really looked into what it is.
I don't know who's in it either. I just watched the clip that was on the when you hover over it.
God, Netflix is so bad at advertising. I guess they're a little better than Max, but it's a good cast. Interesting. Well, I gotta have to check that one out. Have you guys seen Captain Fall?
Who's in the cast?
Jason Ritter is in it. Adam Devine. Christopher Maloney. Anthony Kerrigan, who's the guy who played. He's the guy who played NoHo Hank in Barry, which I don't know if you've watched Barry or not.
I have not watched Barry.
He's awesome. He's such a great performance in that show, and I don't know if they built the character around him as a person or vice versa, but I saw him in North Hollywood, and his character is NoHo Hank. Like I was there eating food in North Hollywood, and he walked in and ordered food at the same place. I'm like, "Are you doing this because you're NoHo Hank, or were you NoHo before Hank?
Are you doing this?" It's method acting.
Good. Yeah, right. Right. But that was after they finished shooting the show, so I don't know. Cool guy. I like him a lot. All right, let's talk. Should we cue the theme song and talk about Futurama?
Yeah, let's do it.
I've been watching them for years. It's always been something that fit with all the animated characters that's doing their own bits. With a fry who's in the future and a family guy that sucks. With a father from a hill, a burger family runs about the show, and Spies is the same guy, except he totally say and diverse.
Let's watch cartoons that curse.
Yeah, that's bananas.
That's rough.
What the is up, everybody? Welcome to Cartoons That Curse. My name is Johnny. I'm here with my co-host Tariq. Tariq, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I've had a whirlwind weekend. I was out of town for a family party thing, got back, and now I've got like so many days of obligations the next 5 days. And so I'm like literally I'm like, all right, podcast this morning, then write a video tonight, and record the video, and then tomorrow morning start writing another video. Got to finish that by Friday morning, but I have another thing tomorrow night. I'm just like nonstop right now. I'm literally like, you can't rest. You gotta work until you gotta work until the end of the week, or else you're not getting your shit done. And I just have a lot going on. But you know what? It's all happy things. It's all exciting things. So that's good. Yeah, and I'm sure you all know this is Cartoons That Curse, the podcast that talks about adult animated series, cartoons that say swear words, cartoons that curse. I previously talked about full seasons, one entire season at a time per episode. The workload was a lot. We are not doing that anymore. And we are now covering the new season of Futurama weekly, one episode at a time, before we change up the format in the future. Well, we're still keeping that under wraps. You'll see at some point.
Yeah. No hints yet.
Everyone shut up.
No hints. Shut up.
But today we're here to talk about the second episode of production season 8, broadcast season 11 of Futurama. This is it's annoying. I feel like we have to say season 11 because there's anywhere that lists it as season 8 anymore. Anywhere. It's just anywhere you can watch it, it's listed as season 11. And so we've been doing this production order the whole time, and we're like, well, shit. Now we look dumb, even though we're right. Stop. Why are you booing us? We're right.
All right. Just like Hannibal.
That's right. This is an episode. It's called Children of a Lesser Bog. That is 20 years in the making. 20 years.
Yeah.
This is a follow-up to the season 4 premiere, if we're talking production order, if I'm not mistaken. Let me confirm that.
Shit.
Kif Gets Knocked Up a Notch, I believe, was the first episode of production season 4. Yep, I believe that is correct. And at the end of that episode, that's the episode where Kif gets pregnant. It turns out, so his species gets pregnant through physical touch when they've produced the feelings from the person they love to be able to get pregnant. But unfortunately, anyone who touches them could get them pregnant. And it was Leela. Leela got him pregnant. So
yeah, man.
That was a great episode. That was a good episode. I like Kif Gets Knocked Up a Notch. Bill Odenkirk wrote it. Love Bill Odenkirk. Wes Archer directed it. Classics. Those guys are real legends. Mm-hmm. Bill Odenkirk, of course, Bob Odenkirk's brother, great writer. Mm-hmm. And now, the end of that episode, all the tadpoles go into the swamp, and Kif says, in 20 years they'll crawl out onto the land and become children. And Amy says, that's when I'll be ready. And sure enough, it has been quite literally 20 years and like 6 months since that episode aired. And here we are. We
made it. We made it.
Looks like we made it. I have gotten some comments about this episode working like it has, with whether or not it's a continuity error with the time freeze that we just experienced in the last episode.
I was thinking that. I was thinking it when I watched it. I was thinking it when you just described what the episode was about.
I'm surprised. I meant to put that in my
bring it
video,
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring it up. But yeah.
I think ultimately, yes, continuity error, but I think that's one that they probably knew and were like, worth it. We're not going to, like, if you count 10 years of them being frozen, the only way we could follow the story is if we did it in another 10 years. And I'm pretty sure they were just like, let's just do it. Let's just fucking do it.
All right, the time is frozen, but the years still did pass.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like,
I don't know.
I think they leave enough leeway in the like non-explanation of the time jump. Like, it's not clear whether or not, it's not exactly clear whether or not everyone else did or didn't experience that period of time when it was frozen. I think it's for sure that our crew didn't experience it. Is that because of the time shelter? Meanwhile, is that because, like, Fry and Lilo were the ones who were frozen, the other ones were in the time shelter, so that messed with their like placement in time? That's the reason the professor got shredded. There's enough leeway for them to explain it if they want to. How about this? Don't think about it so hard. Who cares?
Right.
No, I'm just kidding. It's fine. That's like what Futurama fans do. They think about that shit hard, and I get it.
And I think partially it's because the show kind of trains you to think about things hard. So
I personally think that they made a point not to over-explain the time freeze. They kind of made a joke out of it. Are we younger, older? Science holds no answers. That was their line. And so
right.
That gives them enough leeway to just be like, we're just doing new stories and it's 3023, okay? Deal with it. And I just don't think they ever, like, I don't think that this show's not going to last 10 more seasons. They're not going to get to do that in 10 years. So, I say that now, but I didn't think it would come back this time. Here we are.
Right.
Here we are.
Everything is impossible until it happens.
They're getting old, though. Like, you can hear it in this episode. Billy West, 71. He's still doing a great job. His performance is excellent, but you can hear his age for sure.
I think that Zap is on the better side.
You think Zap sounds better?
Like, not sound like, I think he sounds better than Fry.
Yeah, I had to listen to them side by side. I can hear them both. Oh, I can hear a little age in both their voices. I think his Zoidberg's the one I hear the least. And I know you said you could hear it.
I could hear it a little bit, but I do agree. Yeah. It's just the one that's affected the least.
For sure. So this is the second episode of the year, second episode of the season. After the first one was incredibly meta, this one is just a pure Futurama story following up on an episode 20 years ago. And how do you feel about it? How do you like Children of a Lesser Bog?
I like this one. I like this one a lot. I like it more than last week's.
Yeah.
I think we like kind of talked about it, but I think a lot of the stuff that you have with it was things that like I had on my mind too. But I think emotionally, what the episode does, I was so invested in that it's not that I ignored it, because I definitely knew those things. I was like, oh, that's weird that they're doing that. But like, yeah. And it was making me laugh too. There's like certain pockets of this episode that I think are like pretty funny. It's not like an hilarious episode or anything like that, but a lot of it is just kind of like, because there's no like real standout gags like there normally is in a Futurama episode, but there's a lot of like, oh, that was funny. Oh, okay, that's funny. Like, that's a funny line. That's a funny situational line. Like, that kind of thing. I think there's a lot of that in this one.
So I watched it this morning to take notes for this podcast, and this was probably the third or fourth time I've watched it since Oh, yeah, a lot of you asked how I've seen them. I got screeners from Hulu. That's just how it works. I didn't like hack them or anything. It's critics. Sometimes critics get screeners to see things early. So I've seen the first 6, but I watched this one like 3 or 4 times now. This morning was probably the most I laughed at it. I was kind of I remember the first time watching it, I was like, oh, this is not hitting me in the funny bone like I want it to be. And I don't know, this time jokes that like made me chuckle or just made me chuckle made me outright laugh, and some things that I didn't even care about previously made me laugh a lot this time. There are also jokes that I didn't like the first time and have gotten worse every time for me. And so like, there's both ends of the spectrum. There. I like this episode. So I don't know. I guess I'm just like, it's hard for me to, I'm going in a little bit of a nuanced way in saying that I love what this episode did emotionally. I think last week's episode was funnier. That's how I feel. Okay. So like, I go to Futurama for different things. I'm more of an emotional guy. Those are the kind of things that I like in Futurama, but also like if they don't have good jokes or if they have jokes that I really don't like, that detracts from my enjoyment, And so it's funny because I think the highs of this one are a lot higher than last week's, but last week I felt like I was laughing pretty persistently, and this
I
one
guess
I
so.
was like laughing a little bit less. But there are still some really good gags in it, and there are things about this episode that have just gotten better. Not only the more times I've watched it, but also hearing some comments from people in my comment section after I made my video about it. Making connections I didn't make, and also explaining some of the the smaller commentary or commentary and like metaphorical storytelling that I didn't quite understand. So there's some cool stuff I want to talk about here.
Word.
Yeah, there's some good stuff. So the episode starts weird. It's like just Fry sucking on his jacket.
That jacket thing, that's my first notice that shit is it's a little gross.
It's gross. And it's 1,000.
like-
I did think it was funny that it's like 1,000-year-old honey, which is like, does feel like a real thing. It feels like, yeah, if you get something that's stuck on your jacket for that long, you're going to keep tasting it.
You're right.
But that's such a weird like setup for them to make clumps of honey candy.
And this is, I think Nick brought it up when we watched the first one together about how like it was interesting that even though like Fry is the center of last week, they started with an episode where like he's not even really there that much, and there's not a lot of Fry here either. Like I've noticed too. Now, granted, where the fuck would you put Fry? I have no idea.
I know,
but
well,
you could do something with him and Leela and the kids, but at that point, the episode has to be like 40 minutes.
I think you here's the thing. I don't think you need Fry to be the main character in all of them. You know what I mean? Like at this point, we're this many episodes in. I love that this episode is Amy and Kif focused, and Leela focused. And I get some comments of people being like, God, I wish why weren't Fry and Bender in this one as much? I'm like, because it's not their episode. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're gonna this is Futurama. We're gonna get them plenty, but it doesn't mean
I do think it's interesting that they like chose to start that way though. Like open without those guys. I think they were thinking with this, okay, we're gonna start with this big funny meta commentary on our cancellation and return. And then we're going to go back to the well that we're known for, which is hitting you with a good emotional ending of an episode. And they had an opportunity to not only do that, but to follow up a story that's 20 years old. And that kind of follow up really speaks to the Futurama fans. They really love and respect that kind of stuff. Anytime like minor continuity is followed up in this show, it feels like the fans eat it up. And so I think they made a good call with how they went about like kind of planning out this season. And especially starting one that's a little more topical, doing the next one that's more rooted in Futurama lore. Okay, so I want to talk a bit. I didn't get this. So they're making the honey. I said this in my video. I didn't know what treacle was. I did think the joke was really funny when he goes, just a little bit of treacle for my dear Aunt Juanita. She drowned in treacle. I think that's a good joke. What I got comments about with the treacle thing is this is kind of meta commentary on the subject matter of this episode. There's a term, cut the treacle, and it's used to describe when a show is getting schmaltzy. So they crack a joke. This is a comment I got from Will Higgins and so this episode is pretty specifically sappy and schmaltzy. Like treacle is a sappy, sugary thing, and so they have this. So they're like, oh, this episode is going to be sweet with a hint of treacle, and so it's like commenting on how it's going to be a little sappy. And then at the end of the episode, when they get that big emotional moment, everyone's crying, and he just goes, "Who wants treacle?" Yeah,
I had no idea. Okay. Man, you learned.
I didn't know either.
I like that though. That's so funny.
Because when I saw your video and you were like, man, I had to Google that shit. I didn't know what that was. I just thought it was like some like silly Futurama thing they invented. I didn't
really
I was like, oh, okay, treacle, whatever. I didn't even look it up.
I got a lot of comments of people saying that they'd heard of it from Harry Potter, and I've read all the Harry Potters, and I do not remember reading about treacle. I don't know.
I opt out of that. I haven't seen any, so I opt out of that one.
I know. I feel like they didn't mention it in the movies. I would, but
Okay.
I've read the books too. I do
Yeah,
not
me
think
too.
they, I don't know. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I don't know. I thought that was really interesting. That's a really interesting point. Thank you, Will Higgins, for pointing that out. I think some other comments pointed this out as well for me. I really appreciate anyone who got me up to date on that term. I'd never heard it before. And it's smart. That is pretty smart Futurama writing. That, like, you know, it's so sometimes that Futurama writing, it works on its face, but then when you go a little below the surface, you're like, oh, they were really thinking about that.
Oh, I get
They
it.
were really,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Word.
So all right, so let's talk about some of the things, how they get into this episode. I said this in my video, and I talked to you a little bit about it. I think there are some aspects of this episode that are pretty clumsy. It felt like they could have done a little bit better job getting us into the Kif and Amy's kids plot. It's weird, like they do the whole honey clumps thing. She's gonna make a doctor's appointment for her teeth that got knocked out, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why she sees her her like event reminder, your kids are
Right.
being born.
Right.
And I'm like,
Right.
oh, that's a little flimsy. And then it's also like pretty convenient that she sees that and it's like, oh my gosh, here it comes. And then the moment she says that, Kif walks in. It's like, it's time. I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
very conveniently
Yeah.
timed.
Not only does Kif walk in, but then she has footage of the birth, which is just the animation, the old
Yep.
animation. And she's explaining it and showing it to everybody that is literally in the footage.
Yes.
I thought the instant, because you told me before, you told me you told me that they over explain, and the instant that happened, I was like, oh shit, they're gonna do like this. Okay. And I just feel like you do a cute little 20 years ago on Futurama at the top
There
of the
you
episode,
go.
a cute
A
little
cold
edit.
open.
Yeah, a cute little cold open edit, and then you could just have the rest of the 25 minutes of the episode
I love
to do whatever
that.
you want.
They, like, the way they did, they reanimated the Moaning Lisa stuff for that Bleeding Gums episode of
Exactly.
Simpsons.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I would have loved that, dude.
Yeah.
And especially because the first episode had the cold open, you got the new Hulu cards, you start it with that and the music under it, and then you just go into an abridged version of the birth, and then them saying, I'll be, in 20 years they'll crawl up onto the earth and they'll be children.
And then you smash cut to the intro.
Then. And you either smash cut to the intro or smash cut to the event reminder going off for Amy,
Word.
Intro, and then intro. I like that. So it did feel like they overthought that. I did, I didn't mind them. I do like the moment of them watching the footage and them hearing Amy say, I'll be ready then. And then Kif immediately saying, well, Amy, are you ready? And then her saying, there's nothing that would make me happier than being, having a family with you. That moment works really well about that setup. I just think just like none of the people remembering it and them showing the footage and then being grossed out, but also they're in the footage. They're like, they're literally in the footage. I
feel the same way about a couple scenes later where they have to explain why Leela is their mom, which I think it's ridiculous that they have to explain that.
That one bothers me more. That one bothers me even more. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't see. They did some stuff. There's some stuff with Leela they did in this episode that I love. There's also stuff they did with Leela in this episode that I hate. I don't understand why she wouldn't remember that. Right. I got some comments of people being like, well, she lived 80 years in the time freeze, but I don't think they remember the events of the time freeze. Like Fry,
there's no way they do.
There's no way. Fry's first thing after the time freeze wouldn't be like, I've been 23 years in the future, I need to set a goal. No, if he just lived a whole life, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so,
and I don't think they would, because if they go by that, right, that would mean that like they are now having to write Fry, who is like in the body of like being in his 30s, but he's mentally in his 80s. And that just, while that's interesting, that's not the kind of like, they're not doing that. Like that's obviously not what's going on here. With the Fry we see at the end of Meanwhile is way more mature than the Fry we have now. So that's definitely not him. You know what I mean?
And they didn't explicitly say it in the Impossible stream, but at the end of Meanwhile, they say outright, like, you will not remember the events of the time stream, like, or of the time freeze. So, you know, there we are. So I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, knowing what we know about Leela, that she would, especially with her own parental stuff in her life, with her not having parents, that she would just, or until she finally did, that she would not remember the events of that episode. You know, I mean, like that whole thing about that episode is there's that great moment at the end where, and Kif gets knocked up a notch, where Amy, where all the things are coming after the tadpoles, and Amy and Leela grabs a giant like branch and tosses it to Amy. So like they like team up to protect the kids at the end of that episode. Like, I don't know. It just like, it feels like a cheap, and I hate the "I must have been super drunk" joke. Hate it. Hate it. I hate it.
I'm drunk right now.
I
Jack
hate
Daniels
it.
on the
Why?
table.
Like, that's, I don't know. That just feels so not Leela to me. It doesn't.
Yeah, I
I
get you.
don't understand it.
That jelly donut thing is weird too. I thought that was bizarre.
I like that more though. Like, I don't know. That's weird and quirky. Like, Leela being drunk on the job doesn't fit her at all for me. Like, that doesn't make sense. But Leela, I don't know. Leela drinking some jelly donut is kind of funny, but like, it doesn't interfere with the things I respect about her as a character. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Because I feel the exact same way you do about that moment about Leela not remembering and them having to re-explain. But I do think that little sex movie is pretty funny.
I agree.
I like that shit.
I agree. So I really liked, hold on, what did I wrote it down. They did this well. They did this later in the episode, huh? So I liked the voiceover saying, they just barely touch hands while the rest of us are getting it on. That was great.
I love right before when Professor is about to start it, and just Bender says, "Oh yeah, educate me, baby." That shit kills me. Yes, both times I saw the episode, that shit kills me.
Anytime they do a good like edutainment, like educational video in Futurama, it's usually pretty funny. Like we were talking about, they did it last time. I remember us seeing one was Bots and the Bees when we just covered in the last couple sets of episodes, when they explain how robots reproduce. That's funny too. Like, they always do a good job with those. Those are fun.
Yeah. My favorite one is the Atlantis one, because of that magician thing.
Yes, the magician. Oh my god, it's so funny. I also like I don't know if it's Crimes of the Hot or I think it's Crimes of the Hot.
Oh, I think it is.
It's when they're explaining how they offset global warming by dropping a giant ice cube and the little girl goes, "Just like Daddy puts in his drink every morning," and then he gets mad. Oh, it's so good. Those are so funny.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love it. Okay, let's back up a little bit because we jumped to the next explanation. Yeah. We skipped the actual birth of the kids.
Right.
So yeah, it was. I like how they get into that. You know what gave me a huge laugh this time? It was something I chuckled at last time, and this time I just like burst out laughing. Is when they say that the birth's gonna happen, and Bender just pulls his eyes out and chucks them in the water and yells, "Don't describe it to me." I like that a lot. That made me laugh a ton this time. I know I said this in my video, but it is weird that Kif's parents aren't there. I don't know why they didn't just ignore that.
I didn't think about it. So because when you brought it up, I remember when I watched the episode, I was like, this seems like, I saw the group of characters that was there. I was like, this seems like a low number somehow, even though everybody's here. And then like when you brought up Kif's parents not being there, I'm like, oh, maybe that's what I thought was missing, because I saw Amy's parents.
Well, that's the thing, especially Amy's parents being there. And granted, they've always wanted grandkids. so it kind of makes sense that they're there. But I don't know, like they introduced Kif's parents in Beast with a Billion Backs at their Fanfanru ceremony. Like they're basically their version of getting married in Kif's culture. We see them again in that same movie after Kif dies. Then we see them again in the Butterjunk Effect when they're on Amphibious 9 again. Like it felt like every opportunity they had after that, they brought them in. It's weird to not. Maybe it's because they weren't at the birth in the first one. But I don't know. It just felt like they should have been there.
I guess you.
Yeah, and so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe just an oversight, or maybe they just thought it would be too many people to fit into that sequence. They're just colonies of flies.
Yeah, I don't
his
know.
parents.
I feel like they're more like an asset, like a CG asset or something. But I don't know.
But how hard it would be? But they have to have that asset still, right?
I don't know. I will say that I thought, okay, so after they're born in well, okay, I don't want to skip over the other stuff, but because we just brought up Amy's parents. Yeah, we just brought up Amy's parents.
Oh yeah, let's talk about
after they're born, and after the kids are born and they come out, and Amy runs and hugs them. The mom says, "Ew, she's hugging them."
Yeah.
And I was convinced that after that, I thought the episode was going to be about the grandparents like having to accept them or something like that. So like when the episode went in the direction that it was, I was like pleasantly surprised because I kind of didn't want to see that.
Yeah. You know what?
I'm glad I didn't.
I don't mind that idea for another episode, but I don't know. I don't think I don't
want to see it as soon as they're born.
Exactly. This is such a better, what they did with this is such a better, making it an Amy episode, making it very specifically an Amy episode. And she doesn't get that many episodes. Like she doesn't get that much focus in the show. I think you can pretty much count them on one hand, what are like Amy episodes. And I think this is probably Lauren Tom's best emotional performance in the show in this episode.
Yeah, definitely.
They did such a good job with it.
The read on what's that final line? Because I wrote it down.
More than I knew.
More than I could love anything. Yeah, that's just man, what a powerful read on that.
Wow. Oh, she's so great. She's a great voice actress. Obviously, she's also her parents. Sure, her mom. She plays her mom too, and that's a fun performance too. All right, let's talk about new Leo, Fyodor Chin playing new Leo. What'd you think?
Sounds like Leo to me. I mean, not like, like not 1-to-1. Yeah, like not 1-to-1, but like, like
it doesn't like it's different, and it's always going to be jarring. But he has like 2 lines in this, and I think they're both good deliveries. I think they're both good deliveries. Right. Yeah, I think you did a good job.
And I feel like if they like wrote Leo like how they used to, like I feel like from what I've heard so far of that performance, he could do all the funny shit, which is the important part to me. You know what I mean? Like
exactly. As long as what he's saying is funny, even if he sounds different than Billy West's version, I'll be happy with that.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a little different to me than like the one that always still triggers me, and I'm just like I have a really hard time recognizing the character now is still Hibbert in Simpsons.
Yeah. Just because that's just like I feel like maybe it should have been a different voice actor. Just because Kevin Michael Richardson does that Kevin Michael Richardson bass voice for a lot of different shit.
And he's such a good voice actor.
He is, yeah.
But especially with a character who we've seen for so many years. And like Leo has obviously been in Futurama for a lot of episodes, but his airtime is significantly less. And I think, so I don't know. It's, I liked it. I thought this was good. I thought this was a good performance, and I'm like pretty eager to see how he does in a more meaty role for an episode.
Right. Yeah. Because I don't know. I feel like there's because like, okay, like we were just talking about Simpsons, like Alex Desire, who does the new Carl, right? Like I feel like he good. And I think the thing that I like about him is that he obviously gets the show, which I think is important too. And I don't know. I think that's that's the most to like look for. I think.
Yeah.
Is like, all right, maybe this isn't the voice that I recognize for this character, but like, does this fit this cart? Like, does this fit this world? Like, can you still make the show as funny as it always been? And if the answer is yes, who gives a fuck? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I
Like,
agree.
I think
agree.
that's the important part.
I agree. Yeah. And like most of these recasts have done a really good job in these cartoons. Like I think about Ayo Edebiri doing Missy and Big Mouth, which I haven't really caught up on the last couple seasons. But like if you look at the voices side by side, Ayo does an incredible
Mhm.
job. If you like the new Cleveland's great, right? Like it's like
I'm not jacking a New Cleveland. I'm not gonna lie. That's one of the ones. That's one of my ones.
Maybe
yeah,
I need to listen to it more. I thought that was one that was like pretty close, but maybe I missed. Maybe I
because you know what it
properly.
is. The guy has because they got him off like YouTube, I think, right?
Oh, really?
And he's done Cleveland. He's done videos impersonating Cleveland before, like singing like rap songs and shit like that, parodies or whatever. And he sounds more like Cleveland there than
in the
he
show.
does. Yeah, he doesn't. I think because I think what's doing it for me, I'm like grabbing my throat while I'm talking about voices. That's so funny. I think what does it for me is that he kind of like, and it's not even like something to blame him for, but it's more like, is this the direction they're going? And like, because he's making Cleveland like really like soft and earnest, like really like, oh, okay, like that's kind of who he's turning into.
Interesting.
And so it's like they changed the voice at the same time as kind of morphing the characterization.
Interesting.
So it's like, I think that's part of why it's like harder for me to like settle in. I don't know. I'm gonna keep. I'm not gonna count bro out just yet though. I'm gonna keep giving him a shot.
Well, the big upcoming one we all can have to anticipate now is the Rick and Morty one. Obviously, that's going to be
Ricky and Morty.
We're gonna get both of those guys recast.
Ricky and Morty. I still think they should do two guys. I hope they do two guys. I hope
really
it's
hope
two different guys.
And it's funny because I made a whole video after they said we're not going to find an impersonator. We're going to get a voice actor who's going to like do that voice. And then like just at Comic-Con, they're like, we're gonna try to get someone who sounds as close as possible. And I'm like, wait, come on, come on,
guys.
Just tell us what's going on. I really like that guy on TikTok, Sean Kelly, who I would really like him to play Morty. His Morty is really good. And I think you get another Rick, you get another guy for Rick, you bounce Ricky. And then you have them bounce off each other. I would love to see that. Yeah, that
you could just put them in the booth at the same time. They could do like live shows and just go back and forth. There's so much shit that because that's what I've never seen any of these, but I just hear about them through legend. Because I wasn't obsessed about the show until after the pandemic. But like they used to do these like Bob's Burgers live things just because like everybody's different people, so they could just all get on stage and argue.
Yeah, dude,
and be the characters.
I have not only been to a Bob's Burgers table read at their studio, but I've been to a Bob's Burgers live at what was it? Paley Fest. Paley Fest does those live those things, and they were both so fun to watch. Even the live table read, they had a couple actors who weren't available, but even just having replacement actors there is really fun. The one at Paley Fest was great because they also had then guest actor Paul F. Tompkins playing Mr. Fish Odor, and he made a great fish odor.
That's wild.
I know. He was really good. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. It was a crossover episode.
a little crossover episode.
Mr. Peanut Butter himself in the crossover episode.
I think more cartoons should I don't know how many people do this, but like one day I found there's a table read for a Family Guy episode just available on YouTube, and it's not like a Zoom read. They're like in that room, and like it's like staff and like producers, and everybody's like laughing, and it's like the coolest shit ever. And I think more cartoons should do that. Like,
dude, I know. Like I mean, well, cool. they do, like, that's part of the production schedule is doing those table reads. Not everyone's always available. It's usually just to like they want to get feedback and see audience reaction with the spoken lines, and so they tend to do that before they start recording. But and you can, like, I don't know, out here in LA there are ways to go to them. Like they try to invite people, they invite people to everyone somehow. I think right now the WGA that WGA auction that's for the strike has a Simpsons table read option in there for like something you can bid on.
Word.
Yeah, I don't know. Going to table reads would be really cool. The Bob's Burgers one was so cool to go to.
I bet it was.
It was
bet.
really cool. Okay. Let's see. I wanted to talk about crossovers for a minute, but you know what? I'm just gonna say it real quick. I was thinking about, just because we've been talking about Disenchantment too. Back when Disenchantment was happening, and there were all these Futurama Easter eggs, people kept saying like, "Oh, well, they need to do an episode that crosses over with Futurama. They need to do an episode that crosses over with Futurama." And I always thought, I know they did Simpsorama, but I always thought like, well, Disenchantment doing an episode that crossover with Futurama doesn't make sense. That's like a waste of a Disenchantment episode. Not in that it wouldn't be good or it couldn't be good, but in that Disenchantment is this ongoing story that like, I don't want to detour. I don't want, and I don't want a detour to explain future characters. You know what I mean? Right, but that was also, while Disenchantment was the only thing on, and it was like, and people were kind of like, is this the only way we could see Futurama characters again? Now Futurama's back, and I'm like, oh, Futurama crossing over with Disenchantment in a Futurama episode makes 100% more sense. It's just a crazy, wacky Futurama adventure. They get like, and there's actually more. And, there's all the theories, and there's the theories about how they fit together if they're a shared universe and where Disenchantment might take place on the timeline. And so, like, I think there's definitely stuff you can do with that if you were to decide to bring the Disenchantment characters in for a Futurama. So, you know what? Do it. I'd love to see it. Especially if they do another 20, get these Disenchantment characters in. I would love to see those characters interact with the Futurama characters. I think they would have a lot of fun. Lucy and Bender hanging out. Need it. Need it.
Yeah, sure.
It sounds great.
But what if they get buck wild and do all three? It probably never happened. But what if they just fucking
crazy
put them all together, man? That shit.
I know.
I'm into shit like that. I don't. That could break the world if they do that.
Which show would do it? Which show would that be? Would the Simpsons do that? Are they the ones that have just gone so far in every direction that they could? Or
I think they should, just off the strength of like, it's like, oh, 1 in 800. So
right.
What? You know what I mean? Like, it's just
totally.
off the strength of that.
I don't know. It makes, I can see how easily Futurama could scientifically, narratively get to Disenchantment. But I guess they could, but like, I don't know, both. I'm just like, how do they do both?
But if they do like a time travel-y thing, to Disenchantment, and then they bring those guys to Springfield. And then it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
just go get them.
I could do it.
You know what I mean?
Oh man. All right, cool. All right, let's move on. That's my little crossover tangent.
Let's do it. What else we got?
Okay, so I mentioned this in my video, but like the winnowing is brutal. They just have all of them.
It is pretty brutal.
Out and they just all get eaten. Zoidberg eats one. And I get it. I know that's like true. That's true to nature. I understand that. And it makes a lot of sense to like whittle down the 100 kids so you have a manageable number of kids to animate.
Right.
And so I liked, I understand why you do it. It was shocking though. It was just like, all right, because these are fully grown kids now. They're not just tadpoles.
And doesn't Zoidberg eat one of them?
Zoidberg eats one of them. Yeah, man.
It's a funny gag, but
it's a funny gag, but oof, they just
I think that might be the new worst thing Zoidberg has ever done.
It is, because he's such a good dude.
He's such a good dude. He had no marks against him. It's the first mark in the history of the show. Is him eating one of Amy's kids.
That's a good point. He's so funny. Oh, laughing at that episode where at the end he's still mad and he's yelling at Cupert because he's a terrible person.
Yeah, Cubert's a shit.
A little shithead. Speaking of though, they got to
Yes.
do all the Futurama kids episode, right? They got to do a Dwight Cupert
Yeah.
and all the Kif and Amy's kids story at some point.
Why does Futurama kids make me laugh so much?
I know,
It's like Tom
Futurama
and Jerry.
babies.
Yeah. But they do. You're right. Yeah, I would like that.
Yeah. You got to do it at some point. And I like their explanation for how they're all different sizes. I like that they explain it scientifically. It has to do with the depths and temperature of water in the swamp, that they grew at different rates because of it. And it just lets them have a full family unit of like different aged kids, even though they were all born the same day. And then you get different dynamics. You know, you get the baby who's very cute. She's my favorite, I think. I like Newt. And then you got Mandy, and
I like Mandy.
And Axel is like annoying, but you know he's supposed to be. He's like he's the broody teenager, and he's supposed to be. Pretty annoying.
The cool thing about this episode though is that like before Amy has to go talk to the midwife, who's the first one to hug her? Him.
And his moment is so good. And because she says, you guys, no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. And he gives the tearful hug and says, so are you. Great. One of my favorite moments in the episode. I love it so much. Little thing I want to point out about his design. Did you notice that his hair, it basically looks like Leela's ponytail?
Oh, shit, it does. You're right.
It's pretty cool. Pretty great.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. That's good.
I like that a lot. I think that's great. You know, it's a little curious that they're not any more human looking. I know, like, I don't know how you would do a cross species hybrid design too thoroughly with all of these, so I understand why you don't do that. But it is interesting that like there's a couple traits they have, like the hair. I guess I don't know. Do none of the other amphibians have hair that we've seen in the show? I guess none of them do. I guess that is a major human trait. And obviously Newt's got the one eye, which we saw at the end of Kif Gets Knocked Up a Notch. The last shot is the little tadpole and it's one-eyed tadpole. So it's nice that they did that. But then I like that they immediately address, like, they're like, go to your parents, and they walk up to Leela and she's like, can I help you? That was good. So that's the thing. Once they get past all the annoying expositional stuff that I think was clumsily handled, and they really get into the meat of like the conflict with Amy's insecurities about being a mom and Leela's relation to the kids and how that comes into conflict. That stuff I love it a lot. It's great. It's really, really good. Especially the way that like the kids just naturally really like Leela. So it's like that helps kind of foster that insecurity in Amy.
Right.
They call her Mommy Leela, which is like also very cute, you know, like, and, you know, I wouldn't mind if they kept calling her that, even though she's not, like, you know, even though Amy's their mom, like they're just like, I don't know, Planet Express, all one big family, you know?
That's why I wrote that I want them to love Amy, but it's cute that they love Leela. It's like it's kind of you're a little torn a little bit, you know what I mean? But you really feel for Amy throughout.
Yeah, and then Leela getting them to all run on the like industrial track thing, like the loader, and like it's a treadmill, and they just like they're having so much fun with their that moment that hits so hard and there's no words spoken. It's so great. Is Amy waking up from her nap? She's having Leela watch the kids because she's exhausted because Kif gets called away, and she just wakes up from her nap and sees them having a good time with Leela on the security camera, and she just like sighs and is like clearly deeply affected. It's it's a great moment. It's really good. I love that stuff. I love that stuff a lot. You know, I've gotten some comments about the one thing that I criticized a little bit is the whole, like, why even do this big ceremony? Why is the grand midwife even doing this if the moment Amy just says I love these kids is like that's gonna be all it takes? You know what I mean? It's like, well, why are you doing this? You can tell, like, can you not tell that she wants to be these kids?
I felt parent? That my second watch, I felt that. I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of It's
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
I don't know. Some people have talked about how I guess like Kif species is kind of weird. They do things very differently, and they do things kind of painfully, and they they
Is
do
that
things. They have a lot of like weird customs, so I can kind of give it a pass. But it is like, geez, you're just traumatizing Amy only
yeah, I still
for
think it's
to yeah.
bizarre. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And honestly, the other thing that I think is bizarre is just the idea that they would be like, well, if you don't pass this test, Leela's going to raise them. It's like, well, did you ask Leela if she wants to raise these
hmm
kids? Is that really her responsibility? Um, but I understand why they do it, and there's a lot about how that all goes down that I like the ending a ton. Let's back up to the Kif Zap story real quick. Let's talk about that before we get to like the end of the episode.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about them?
Manscaping.
Yeah, well, the manscaping. I don't care for the manscaping too much, but I don't know. That is pretty Zap, but like I don't know. It was really grossed out seeing him spit out the clumps of honey. It's so
I
gross.
think I must have missed him spitting it out the first time I
Oh,
watched the
it's
episode, but
gross.
the second time I was like, whoa.
So disgusting.
Yeah, it's
But
pretty
if I ever
nasty.
get another Manscaped advertisement on a Futurama video, I know what clip I'm using.
That's what, you weren't with us, but when we were watching the episode, Nick was like, somebody got a ad intro. Who's gonna do
Yep.
Manscaped? Who's gonna do
Easiest
Manscaped first?
ad intro. Perfect.
It's a race, man. Yo, I don't know when I'm gonna get Manscaped again, but please.
I know it's been a while for me. Yeah. So okay. So Kif gets called away by Zap, and they have to go like fix this transmitter on this like tardigrade research station, which I guess they say is a type of bear, but it's because they're like known as space bears or something, tardigrades. So they're not real bears, but they're cool. They're cool creatures. It's interesting that they put them in the show. They are real creatures. Tardigrades are normally really small, but like they are real creatures that can survive in the vacuum of space. And what did you think about this whole sequence? There's this whole thing with the bear biologist and them and then Zap.
I love it. I
I
love the bear
love
biologist.
the bear
It's so
biologist.
funny. It's so, when he showed up, I like yelled. I like shouted. I was like, "Oh shit!"
I love that he goes, I used to work with whales, but I hate whales. Hate.
So I'm glad. I'm glad you found the animal that you like. Because I didn't
Not
say
yet.
that. Oh
That
man,
stuff all is great.
when Zap gets taken and there's like a smash cut and he's screaming. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Help, Kif. It's so funny.
And you know what?
I love
You know
that.
what? You know what made me laugh the hardest in that sequence too is he gets dragged into the thing, and the whale biologist and Kif are just watching, and then there's the beat, and Kif just sighs. I like that. I love that. It's so good. And you know what? Like, even though there's things about how this plays out that I think are clunky as well, like the whole flashback aspect where we see him. They hint that he maybe killed these tardigrades, and then 1 minute later they flash back to see he didn't. That feels a little clunky to me, and how quickly they flash back. And I'm like, well, if you're doing it this quick, you could have just showed him.
You could have just showed us. Yeah,
You could have just showed him. You didn't have to fake us out. But on its face, I love Kif going in full macho mode and getting in there and saving Zap. And it's not because he wanted to save Zap. It's because Amy needed him. I love that. Like Kif getting out of his comfort zone and doing something that is a little out of character, but in aid of his family, like just being a little tougher and because he knows that his family needs him. And so that worked for me really well. And like, I guess, it's him seeing the tardigrade family or whatever and being like, oh, I'm not going to kill the tardigrades. But that on its face, I think is great. And then you know what? Someone pointed out to me that I didn't even think about that. I now really love and respect about this episode. The way Amy is about to start the ceremony for her kids and Kif's not there completely parallels in Kif gets knocked up a notch because Kif is there without Amy, and then Amy shows up. And I can't believe I did not even think about that. I should have sat down and like fully rewatched Kif Gets Knocked Up a Notch before I made my video, but that is such a great Parallel. I love that
That's
a
the
lot.
type of that's the type of shit they got to remind us of. Not
Right.
who fucking touched his hand.
No, or you don't, and like we can just.
Oh,
It can be a nice thing
yeah.
we realize. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
sure.
it can make
Yeah.
it more meaningful the more we realize about it. You know, I don't need it all spoon fed to me.
Right.
Yeah. I don't need it spoon fed to me like treacle.
Like treacle.
And then we talked a little bit about it, but the whole ceremony, them going into the hut, them over preparing them for this rigorous amount of tests, and then the big question just being, do you or do you not love those kids? And you said it before, the performance and delivery of that line, more than I knew I could love anything, is so good. And then she just goes, and that's all that truly matters. It's great. It's a really great moment. I love it a lot. I don't know. That's like, I think this is up there. Like, this is up there. It's, we were watching these last 26 episodes, and we got the nice Bender and his son moment at the end. We got the nice Farnsworth and his family moment in that episode. I'm like, oh, we've never really gotten like one of these really deeply
Sweet.
Emotional Amy moments. And there's a couple with Kif. I guess there's some stuff with Kif. You know what? I mean, Kif gets knocked off a notch does have a really good Kif Amy moment at the end. Just that moment we saw in this episode.
But I see your point. I think there are other moments in the show where we see other characters literally broken.
Right.
And I don't think we like that. I don't know if we've gotten that with Amy until now.
That's a good
point.
Like
we've seen, like even Hermes, like we've seen Hermes like hit rock bottom and be like really fucked up and like have to have the support of like his family and his friends. You know what I mean?
That's a good
like,
point.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, I'm glad they went there. I'm glad they went there so quickly in this new season. I love the end of this episode. And, and then like I said, I mentioned the treacle thing earlier, but that is how they deliver that is pretty funny. It's just,
I like that. I like him. I like Fry saying strong stuff, huh? That's pretty good too.
Strong stuff, huh? Yes. And he's talking about the treacle. And it's because he's talking about the sappiness of the episode. Strong
and now I'm
stuff.
I'm tapped in. Okay,
it's great.
The science. I did the science.
It's really great. Yeah, now we're back to doing the science.
We're back to doing the science.
Oh man, it's great. And so I said, this is an episode that while obviously I had some criticisms about how some of it plays out and how they utilize exposition, but man, does it just work in the end? Like the ending works. It hits so good. It's hard for me to really give them a super hard time about that other stuff when I'm just like walking away like, well, that was great, and I mean, I'm not gonna let them off the hook entirely. I think this episode could have been like near perfect if they had maybe cleaned some of that up,
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And so there's always things they could improve on a little bit, but this is a great episode. I really love the end of this.
I agree.
Yeah.
Also, I know last week I pointed out that John DiMaggio had top billing, but this week it was Katie Seagal.
So I think all of them are probably going to rotate. It seems like the main three. I'm guessing Fry, Leela, Bender, or will rotate every week, which is cool. I like that. That's great. I think previously Billy West had top.
Yeah. That's just kind of that's usually. It's like in the Fox cartoons, they like usually start with the dad.
Yeah.
Like when doing the cast,
Totally.
That's kind of usually what.
Yeah, I mean Fry is like the main character, so it makes sense. And Billy West, he's like it starts with him getting frozen, So
right.
But this was also like of the big three, Leela had the most focus this episode. And so that makes sense. And I think, DiMaggio getting it last week is part of the whole contract thing. The fact that he felt a little slighted. So like, well, we'll get all these rotated in and out. Yeah. Oh, you know what I also liked? I liked Newt saying you're my favorite mommy to
That's
Amy.
pretty good. Yeah.
It's good. Good stuff. I like it. I like this episode a lot.
Good episode. The kids I wrote this down too. The kids were having a glizzy fight. I thought that was funny. There was a little Lizzie war.
That was funny. That was very funny. You know what? I always liked Kif and Amy's apartment. I guess it was Amy's apartment. Now it's Kif and Amy's apartment. It's a cool, like the exterior in particular, really cool building.
Yeah.
I like those weird future buildings. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, there's some things like, I had recommendations about how they could maybe have like cleaned some of it up. Like I don't think Leela should have forgotten that she was biologically the parents. And I think it would have been cool to maybe have a scene that to remind the audience, maybe have her having a heart-to-heart with Fry, who she is, they are boyfriend girlfriend, like her going to her boyfriend to be like, hey, I'm a little nervous about this. These are like, I know these are Amy and Kif's kids, but like, biologically they're mine. I grew up without parents and wanting to know who my real parents are. There's like a lot you can do with that dynamic and those insecurities that Leela grew up with. And,
I think you could fit that into the episode as is if you shave off all the exposition stuff.
I think you remove the scene where they explain to Leela that she's the parents and you replace it with Leela talking to Fry about it. Or I guess at that point it's after. At that point it's already after. But you basically use that scene, and then Fry would be the one who would be like, "Wait, that happened?" He would be.
It's in character for him to be so forgetful about some shit like that.
Exactly, and then you get Leela talking about her feelings and re-explaining to Fry and to the audience, reminding the audience. I think that would have worked a little bit cleaner and more in character for everyone. But all things considered, I like this episode a lot. I still like, I'm going to have a hard time ranking the season when we're done, because there are just different things I like about each episode. Like I love the first episode for how funny it was. And I love this episode for how emotionally affecting it was. And, and so I'm like, we'll see it. We'll see how I feel at the end of the season. It's going to be a gut feeling,
Right.
I do think this one has gotten better for me on rewatch. So I think if you had asked me right after my first watch of like the stuff that I've seen, I would have been like, no, I like the first one more than this one. But on rewatch and a little bit of the added context I've learned thanks to some commenters and thanks to rewatching with the treacle stuff and the connections to Kif gets knocked up a notch, I'm like, oh, there's more to appreciate about
some
this.
shit in there. Yeah. Word.
Good shit. You got any other thoughts? Any final thoughts about Children of a Lesser Bog?
No. We pretty much went through everything I got. I got this one Kif line. Kif says, this one's for Axel, Maddie, and little what's his name. I thought that was funny. That's a little mean.
I like that too. I thought Kif's corny ass one-liners were kind of funny too. Like he blasts the tardigrades and he goes like, "It's been a blast" or something. It's very stupid.
It's time to tuck you into your graves.
Yes,
like,
that's good. That's
stupid
good
shit.
Stuff. Oh man. Cool. Good episode.
Yeah,
next week is the episode How the West Was 10100001.
Great title.
It's a great title, and I've got that. I've got that exact binary number in my head entirely. I've memorized it.
I bet.
I'm the Futurama title guy. I got them all up here.
Got them all.
It is the crypto gold rush episode, basically. As we've seen from the previews, it's an Old West episode, and it appears that they are making the fight for crypto mining. They're turning it into like a parallel to gold mining, and which makes sense. It's like I think that's a really fun way to go about that, rather than just being about an episode about cryptocurrency, which would be pretty boring. Just give it a historical parallel and then theme it. And I think that's fun. I'm eager to see how people feel about it. I'm not going to say anything about the episode, but it's
word.
Eager to hear how people feel about it, eager to talk about it next week. And anything else? Anything you want to plug? You want to plug your Carl video, which is so good?
Oh, thank you. Did a video on Carl from The Simpsons, Carl Carlson. Really proud of it. I think it's one of my favorite videos I've ever done.
So
give
good.
that a watch. Thank
so
you, man.
great.
I appreciate that. And Monday Monopoly, same
Hell
thing.
yeah.
Funding
Monday
my
Monopoly,
cartoon.
baby.
Come
A
through
baby.
Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Come through Monday Monopoly.
We will be back here. It seems like our release date for these are Thursdays. We pretty much get these recorded on Wednesdays, put them out Thursdays for these
All right.
Futuramas. So look forward to us next Thursday releasing the episode on How the West Was 10100001. Check out my breakdowns of the episodes on my channel. And what else? We got anything else to plug? Watch Disenchantment when it comes out. Watch all of Disenchantment, guys. I think it's a good show. I want to talk about that show. I don't think I have anything else.
That's
cool.
It.
Hell yeah.
All right.
And with that, we did another good job. An hour, 10 minutes talking about one episode, man.
One up. Yeah.
There's a lot
You're
to talk
welcome.
about with these. Yeah, you're welcome. And we didn't, and you know what? It's probably the same amount of time we talked about the first one because we talked about Barbie for 20 minutes in the first episode.
We did.
Too.
We did anyway.
So here you go, you guys. You're getting so much more Futurama combo than before. Granted, it is so different to talk about them as they come out. Like you're processing the new stuff and then like trying to comprehend how you feel about them in the context of the show you've loved for so long.
Right,
so there is so
right.
much to talk about. It's not just it's not just like, yes, I remember this one and I love it. It's like, oh, this is new and we're talking through our feelings about it as we go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you guys are along for the ride with us. Leave us comments. You know what? I haven't asked you to do this. Rate, review, and subscribe. Now that we're back, rate, review, and subscribe on all your podcast platforms. It really helps promote the show and get it to show up sooner in any searches on those platforms. And especially because we're going to be coming back in full force and changing the format soon, we're really trying to just like get everything up and running and operating like a smooth, well-oiled machine. And we could use your help. Tell your friends, rate, review, subscribe.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you a lot. And with that, I want to thank Jake Neutron for our theme song. I want to thank Carrie Feek for amazing artwork. I want to thank Michael Yunez for executive producing and editing the podcast and co-hosting our Patreon episodes, Cartoons That Curse After Dark. We want to thank all the patrons, the cursed ones, who support us through Patreon. If you're interested in the Patreon, please check us out at patreon.com/cartoons that curse. There are like 30 to 40 extra episodes for you to check out, all mostly about movies. They're fun. We have a good time. Mikey's a great co-host. I want to thank Tunerific Tariq for co-hosting this show. We're back every week. We've released 4 episodes in the last week and a half. Pretty good.
Yeah, man.
Or 2 weeks pretty great.
On a roll.
We're on a goddamn roll. We've given you 10 hours. 10 hours. And I want to thank all of you for listening, watching, commenting, being here with us. You are lovely. We love you a lot, but also, thank you very much.